So once again, welcome to Check-in with Rose. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. I'll try my hardest not to clap my hands because I have a thing with clapping my hands. We're going to begin. So yes, as I mentioned, that this episode will just be about just getting to know who I am and how I started this initiative. So firstly, I'm a young mom. I'm 27 years old. I have 2 kids. I live in Melbourne. And I have a diploma in youth work, and I've been working in that industry for about 2 years now as a youth worker, as an accommodation support worker with youth. And I've moved to Melbourne about 8 years ago. However, I used to come to Melbourne. I was always in between Melbourne and Adelaide. So I'm originally from Adelaide. I grew up there for about 9 to 10 years. Prior to that, actually, when we first came to Australia, we lived in Brisbane for about 2 years. So I will begin with how I started with this initiative. So I came up with this about a month ago. So actually on the 30th, I woke up at 5 in the morning, and all these ideas came to mind, and I just started writing it down on my notes. I've been actually thinking about it for a while because I've noticed that in our community, especially, mental health is becoming a major concern. Obviously, I've lost 2 loved ones. I've lost a dear friend and one of my close cousins, which is all linked to mental health issues. One is from suicide and one is from overdose. And I realized that we need to do something, and I do acknowledge the existing and upcoming platforms within our South Sudanese community, and I'm just so grateful for that because I'm glad that we are now recognizing and acknowledging that something needs to be done. And we, as someone said, we are the bridge between our parents and the youth of this generation. So I just really wanted to just create this platform and just really allow people to come and just share their lived experiences of mental health issues or alcohol and drugs. I really strongly feel that we will be able to connect and empower others by sharing our pain, by sharing our experiences, and just so people can understand that they're not alone. They're not going through this alone. Me, myself, I faced many adversities, which I'll touch on briefly shortly. I've been through so much, and it didn't come easy. I've come a long way, and I'm still in the journey of navigating, some of my unhealed traumas. For the first time, I've actually saw a counselor for the first time a couple of weeks ago, and I'm telling you, that was the best decision that I've ever made. And I encourage anyone to seek professional help. I really do. I also want to advise guys that even though that I am doing a bachelor's degree of mental health and AOD, I am not, please, I repeat, I'm not a mental health advisor. I'm not yet well equipped. So yes, do your research and please seek professional help. I'm only here to just, share my learning experiences and to obviously share my professional and my personal lived experiences. And I just welcome just everybody else out there. And I know it is, this platform is targeted at the South Sudanese diaspora, but I welcome anyone because mental health is for everyone. Everyone faces mental health issues. So that is, I just wanted to touch around that. So check-in, for those who don't know, or for those who have just come on and this is their first time finding out what this platform is about. So Check-in with Rose is a platform, as mentioned, targeted at the South Sudanese diaspora, which facilitates open and honest discussions around mental health and AOD. I strongly feel that this is a very important topic. It is so important. And I really believe that if we can come together and share our experiences, I hope and I vision that it will somewhat help and empower somebody else. And even if they don't come to my platform and share their stories, even if you can just come and share your perspectives on how did you deal with your experiences, and how did you cope, what did you do, what sort of supports did you look into, did you reach out to, so just coming to share our ideas and our perspectives on how we can just really build ourselves and come out of those really dark place. Because I've been there many times. There's times where I was like, I can't do this, I cannot go on anymore. There's times where I've had suicidal thoughts and I was like, I just need to end it, because I just wanted the pain to end. I just wanted to end everything. I didn't want to feel it anymore. I didn't want to go on anymore. I was tired of being told that I should be strong. I was tired of having to be strong, because sometimes it's like that's the only option that I have. So I strongly feel that I really want this platform to just reach out to many and impact many, and really just help people to find their voice. I will have people coming in from diverse backgrounds, and who from different professions, and even just full-time moms. People don't understand that that's a job itself. That's a full-time job, and it is difficult. It is hard, especially when you are doing it alone. Whether you're a father that's, whether you're a father that's looking after your children and is the primary care, or whether you're the mother. It takes a toll on our mental health. So I will share with you just briefly going into just my background, my upbringing. So as I mentioned earlier, when we first came to Australia, we lived in Brisbane. So I came with my mom and my dad and my sister, in the hopes of beginning a new life. Unfortunately, I was one of those who was brought up in an unstable home environment, and I was brought up in a home where there was family violence, and it went on for quite a very long time. I'd say over a decade. So when I came, I was 6 years old in 2000, and it started within the first few months. And guys, I want you to understand that I am coming from a place of healing and awareness. I have no intentions. I respect my mom and my dad very much. In fact, I have a very close relationship with my mom. Unfortunately, not so much with my father, but we are, trying to build on our relationship just recently. But he hasn't been in my life at all, very much. So I don't want you guys to view them in a negative light. And I think that's why we are so afraid to come out and to share our stories. Because as we know, we don't want to get judged, and we want people thinking that, we're seeking pity, or, we don't want them to look at our parents, in that negative light. But I think it's so important that we should get used to sharing our traumas and sharing our pain. I think that's a start towards healing. So going back to the story, we came with my family in 2000. I was 6 years old with my younger sister, which I think she was 3 or 4 years old at the time. And then within the first couple of months, reflecting back now, my mom and my dad conflicted a lot. They had their differences, and they weren't getting along very, very well. I remember it becoming just a nightmare. I struggled to sleep. I remember always waking up to, my mom, screaming and my dad yelling. And just think about it just for a moment, being 6 years old at that age. And it continued to go on. And I remember police were coming and leaving. My mom was in and out of hospital. There's times where my mom couldn't even get up from the bed. And I remember that school became like my safe haven. You know, the school wasn't very far from where we lived. And I remember I'd go to school myself. I would literally, you know, make my own lunch, whatever was there. And I remember many times I just walked to school alone and come back alone. And it continued for quite some time. And 2 years in living in Brisbane, we moved to Adelaide because child protection had got involved, and they've come to realize that, you know, mum was not safe and we weren't safe either. So that's how we moved to Adelaide, actually. So we moved to Adelaide and I grew up there. So for about 9 to 10 years. And I remember the first couple of months, I felt peace and I felt so happy. You know what I mean? Because it's like I can sleep now peacefully. I can wake up peacefully. Mom was I could see she was, you know, mentally and emotionally stable. And she would take us to school and she would bring us back. And I remember there was one day she was speaking to my dad. And I remember my heart just dropped because that conversation led to my father coming back to Adelaide and staying with us. And I remember asking her, like, why? Like, how come, mom? You know, and she would always just make it seem like, you know, everything's okay and it's all right, and, you know, he's your father, and how I should just, you know, accept it, you know. And so he came and it continued. The violence continued, waking up in the middle of the night, not being able to sleep, and then me having to look after my sister. And it was intense. I mean, it was intense. You know, I remember one time my mom, they were fighting, and my mom just fell on the floor and she was unconscious. I remember I was 8 years old at the time and I didn't even know what to do. And me and my sister were just screaming. We're like, what do we do? My mom was just out and he drove off. My dad drove off, he left. And here we are just sitting thinking that our mom she's gone or she died. We didn't even know what to think at that time, but she was not waking up. We were trying to wake her up. And so we had moved from, our schooling was really disrupted because we had moved so many times in Adelaide, going from women's shelter to women's refuge due to this violence. And it really, reflecting back now, it really, really affected me a lot. And, you know, I remember one time when I was 10, we were living in a place where my dad wasn't allowed to come to that property. And he was found and he was caught there. And I remember, and it was raining that day. And they had asked us to evacuate immediately, like to leave, to vacate that premises immediately. We were homeless. And I remember I was like, at 10 years old, I was like, I knew this would happen. You know, Dad shouldn't have been there. So we went and stayed with family for quite a couple of months, actually, before we found a place again. And in 2007, I think that's when Mom and Dad officially called it quits. And by then, I already became like this rebel or a mischief, or however you want to interpret it. And I had engaged in like high risk behaviors, partying, drinking. That time I used to come to Melbourne or go back to Adelaide, come to Melbourne, go back to Adelaide. And I did this until 2009, I'd say was like my turning point, where I went back to school. I had met a friend, actually, a really good friend of mine, who I could actually look up to, because I didn't really have a lot of good role models around me, or mentors, or, you know, and my mom was just, she was already going through it with her and my dad. And I don't blame her now. I used to judge her for her poor decisions, but I don't judge her now, you know, through everything I've been through in my life, and now being a mom myself, I can kind of understand why she made those decisions, why she tried to stay. You know, I do recognize now that both my mom and my dad have their own traumas, you know, and I shouldn't judge them, you know. They lack the understanding of mental health, just like we do in our community. And so, yeah, that's my upbringing. And that's kind of, I feel like that's kind of what led me to leave the house at a young age, and just do what I thought was right. And I was literally out there searching for love. You know, I now I can just reflect back thinking, this girl was so broken. I had so many issues, insecurity issues, feelings of unworthiness. And I was out there just, you know, dating and trying to find and feel whole and loved, you know, by these men, you know. And, you know, for a very long time, I've been ashamed of, you know, of my past, you know. But now, where I am, I'm so grateful, and I'm so blessed to still be here today to come and share this with you guys. This was really hard for me. Only a very, very few know about my past and my upbringing. And honestly, I've come a long way. And I told myself, Rose, you know, you are not defined by your past. You know, anyone can change. Anyone can change. Anyone. And I'm still, like I mentioned, I am still figuring it out. I'm still working through it. I'm still, you know, dealing with my internal wounds. And one of the biggest protective factors for me is building a relationship with God. Guys, I'm so serious. Like, I think that small faith that I had really is what kept me alive. And my child, my first son, is the reason why I always held on in life. Because I've been close to wanting to commit suicide. Like I've mentioned, like I've been really, really close. And that's why I think it's so important that as a community, that you join me in this movement. And I would rather have somebody call me, or somebody come and just share their experiences on this platform than to attend another funeral. We need to do something. And we need to change the narrative in our community. Being strong, it's fine. You'll get over it. That is not enough sometimes. That is not enough. Let's educate ourselves so that we'll be able to be equipped to provide the tools and the resources to help somebody else. So that is my story. And I will go into detail even more throughout my podcast. And you'll truly get to know,
dearest,
who I am,
sweet Aaliyah. I have
and
trouble
the woman
accepting
that
the
I'm
fact that
becoming.
you're gone, so I won't.
So thank you all so very much for everybody
It'll be
who
like
has tuned in
we went for a while without seeing
and
each
watched
other.
this first episode. I appreciate it very
understand
much. And for
why God
anyone
would
who
want you
has been
close to
triggered in any way
because you truly were an angel on earth.
whilst watching this,
In my own special way.
I advise you to
love
please, you know,
Miss you.
seek help and call. I have numbers here actually. I have Lifeline Australia, which is 13 11 14. And I have Kids Helpline, which is from ages that range from 5 to 25 years old. kids helpline is 1-800 55 1800. So if anyone can relate to my story, or if you have any other topics that you would like me to discuss, send me a message. And even if you don't want to join, and you don't want to come onto the platform, just share your ideas. What are your suggestions? What do you think are the other major concerns around mental health that we should discuss? Send me a message. It's all open. And like I mentioned, guys, I'm not a medical advisor, but I do have a lot of personal lived experiences of mental health issues, in terms of suicide, depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, unhealthy relationships, my goodness, self-esteem. We are all going to go into it. Mental health is broad, and there's so much to cover, there's so much to talk about, and this is what this platform is about. So I encourage you all, join me in this movement. You are not alone. You are not alone, okay? Trust me, everyone is all going through something, whether it's financial, whether it's relationship, whether it's domestic violence, whether it's losing a loved one, whatever it may be, you are not alone. And I think it's time as South Sudanese community to come together, and instead of gossiping or looking down on somebody, let's separate that person from that situation. Let's separate them from their addiction. Let's separate them from that problem and try to identify and help them. So yes, join me in this movement, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really do appreciate it. Have a good night, good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world. You are loved, you are beautiful, you are handsome, you are valuable. Please do not ever go into the world and seek validation. Look within yourself. Look within yourself and accept yourself and accept who you are and accept your flaws. That's something that I had to do, and I've had an issue with that for a very, very long time. There was times where I could not even look at myself in the mirror. I could not look at myself in the mirror. And now, I truly look at myself in the mirror and I say, I forgive you. I forgive you and I love you. Despite what you've been through in your life. I'm not looking from 10, 15 years ago. I'm looking ahead now. I am looking ahead. And whatever God has in store for me, that's all I'm just gonna wait for. So thank you so much once again. And yeah, we'll see you in the next episode of Check-In with Rose. Take care.